Hi boys and girls, I'm going to be showing you how to stitch this embroidery hoop. The first thing you want to do is make sure you have all your materials. You're going to need your hoop with your pattern inside of it. You'll want your colors. I'm going to be using green and orange. And you're going to need your needle. We're going to start by stitching our stems of the flowers. So the first thing we want to do is take our green thread. That's the color I'm going to be using. I'm going to take some off of this plastic piece. So I'm going to go ahead and unwrap some. You can do this with me if you're stitching along. So I'm going to take off as much as I want. I'm going to take off about this much, and then I'm going to cut my thread. Okay, the first thing I need to do is tie a knot at the end of my thread. So to do this, I'm going to make a loop like this, and then with my tail, I'm going to stick it through the loop, and that's going to make a knot. I'll show you it one more time on this piece of string. I'm going to make a loop like this, and then I'm going to stick the tail through the loop and pull it through, and that makes a knot. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is thread my needle. So I'm going to take the other end of my thread and I'm going to put it through my needle. It helps if you kind of squish the ends of the thread together like this and then stick it through the needle. Okay, and now you've got a little tail of thread. And now we're ready to start stitching. We got our knot on this end and our needle is threaded on this end. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring our needle up from underneath. This is going to hide our knot at the bottom. And I'm going to bring my needle up to right above the bottom of the stem, right there. So watch, I'm going to bring the needle up from underneath and I'm going to pull it all the way through until the knot stops it on the back. Then I'm going to insert the needle back down right at the bottom of my stem, and I'm going to pull it all the way through. Now I'm going to bring my needle up again a little bit ahead of my stitch. I'm going to bring it up about right here, but remember to do it from underneath. Okay, so I bring it up from underneath and I'm going to pull it all the way through. And then I'm going to insert the needle back down right where my other stitch ended. So it's going to go, they're going to be touching. And I'm going to insert my needle back down. And I'm going to keep doing this until I've covered all the stems. So I'm going to bring my needle up a little bit in front of my other stitch. I'm going to pull it all the way through. And then I'm going to insert it back down so that it's touching the stitch I just did. And pull it all the way through. And I'm going to keep going until I'm done with all the stems on my embroidery hoop. When the thread gets too short, we're going to do one last stitch and then I'm going to show you how to tie it on the back so we can get some more thread. Okay, so I'm finishing my last stitch. Now I'm going to turn my hoop over and I'm going to tie a knot on the back so that I can do my last stitch. The way you're going to do it is you're going to take your needle, you're going to go underneath one of your stitches. So I'm going to go underneath this big green stitch right here. I'm going to pull it, but instead of going all the way, do you see that little loop that we have right there? I'm going to stick the needle through that loop like this and pull it tight. And that makes a knot. Okay, and I'm going to cut the little tail, so now it's not a big tail, it's just a little tiny tail. Now I'm going to get some more green thread, and I'm going to thread my needle again. I'm going to need a knot at the end of my thread as well, so remember when we're tying a knot, you make a loop with your thread like this, a little circle, and you want to stick the tail through the loop. Okay, and that makes a knot, and then I'll pull it tight. I'll show you one more time. So you make a circle with your thread, and you want to stick the tail through the loop. Like that. Kind of like tying your shoe. And then I'm going to pull it tight. Okay, I got my knot on one end. On the other end, I'm going to thread my needle. So I'm going to squish these ends of the thread together. And then I'm going to put it through the eye of the needle. Okay. And then I'm ready to keep stitching. So remember, we start by coming up from underneath so that we can hide the knot. So I just have one more stitch left on this part. And then I'm going to finish the rest of my stems. Now that I'm done with the stems, I'm going to do the flowers next. Before I can do that, I need to tie off my thread on the back so it doesn't come undone. So remember, you're going to find a stitch that's close by. You're going to put the needle underneath it and pull it, but not all the way. You're going to want to leave a little loop like that. And then I want to stick the needle through the loop and pull it tight. You can do that 1 or 2 times. I would suggest doing it 2 times so that it doesn't come undone. So you're going to make that little loop like that, and then stick your thread back through the loop and pull it tight. For the flowers, I'm going to get my colored thread. So I'm choosing orange to do my flowers today. And I'm going to unwrap some. You can choose how much you want to get. I like to get kind of a lot so that I don't have to rethread my needle at the end, but we'll see if I need to get more later. So that looks like about how much I want to take for right now. On one end of the thread, I'm going to tie a knot. So I'm going to make a loop. Then I'm going to stick the tail through the loop. And I'm going to pull it tight. I'm going to do it one more time. Make a loop. Stick the tail through the loop. And pull it tight. Okay. On the other side, I'm going to thread my needle. Just like that. Okay, now I'm ready to begin. Remember to start underneath so we can hide the tail underneath our fabric. And I'm going to insert the needle up a little bit. I'm going to start with this flower right here. I'm going to insert the needle up about right here. Okay, and then I'm going to stitch back one and pull it through. Then I'm going to insert the needle a little bit ahead of that stitch I just made and stitch so it comes back to the stitch I already made, so they're touching. And then I'm going to stitch a little bit ahead. And stitch back to the other stitch I made so that they are touching as well. And now I just made my first petal. And I'm going to keep going. Okay, so now that I'm done stitching the flowers, I'm going to turn it over and tie off a knot on the back. Remember, I'm going to go underneath one of my stitches. So I'm going to go under this one right there. And then I'm going to let that little loop form before I pull it all the way through. So we'll see that little loop. I'm going to stick my needle through the loop and pull it tight. I'm going to do it 2 times. Go underneath the stitch again. I'm going to make sure I have a loop that forms. Just like that. And then I'm going to put my thread through the loop and pull it tight. Then I can trim this. And now I'm going to show you how to do the back of your hoop. So for the back of the hoop, I'm just going to use some extra thread. Looks like I have some extra orange thread. You can use any color for this part. I'm going to just use the rest of my thread that I've got here. And we're going to start the same way. we're going to tie a knot on the end of our thread. So remember, I'll show you, you make a loop, and then you want to stick the tail through the loop and pull it tight. Okay, I'm going to do it one more time. Make a loop, stick the tail through the loop, and pull it tight. You can just do it one time. Okay, on the other end, I need to thread my needle. So stick all those pieces together, stick it through the needle. Okay, and now we're ready to go. I'm going to turn my hoop over like this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and under the fabric. So I'm going to stitch around the edge of the fabric. I'm going to go over and under like this. First I'm going to stick my needle through the fabric. You can start anywhere you want, somewhere kind of near the edge, and pull it up through the fabric. Then I'm going to stitch a little bit to the side and go back down the fabric. Okay, then I'm going to go up the fabric, and then I'm going to go back down the fabric, and then go up. I'm going to keep going all the way around. Stitch through both layers of fabric if your hoop has 2 layers of fabric, if you can. And I'm going over, under, all the way around my hoop. If you don't have enough thread to go all the way around the hoop, you can pull it out and get more thread, or you can start to scrunch your fabric together like this, and now you can see that I don't need as much thread. Okay, so I'm going to keep going all the way around. Okay, I think I'll do one last stitch. Now I'm going to pull it tight. You'll see I'm going to take the thread off my needle now. I don't need that anymore. I've got this tail and I've got this tail. I've got 2 tails. I'm going to pull both of my tails together so that all my fabric is scrunched together. Then with those 2 tails, I am going to tie a knot. So this is like tying your shoe. I'm going to cross them over, pull it tight, then I'm going to do it one more time. Cross them over and pull it tight. Then I can trim the tails. Now I've got all my fabric pulled behind the hoop, so now you can't see it when you're looking at the other side. This pen that I used on the fabric is heat erasable, which means if you can still see the lines, you can get a blow dryer, or you can have a parent help you and you can iron on top of it. The heat from a blow dryer or from the iron will make those marks disappear, and you won't be able to see the pen marks anymore.